Hello, friends, and welcome to the Page Turning Podcast, and thank you for listening to my weekly update. It's where I talk about what I've been reading, what I'm going to read, what I won't get to, and everything else in between. If you're new here, I can be found on pagechewing.com is the best way to get in touch with me. Join our forums by clicking visit our forums and register for an account there. I do have to approve all new memberships, so if you don't get in, it'll just take me a little bit to make sure that you're not a bot or someone wanted to cause trouble. So swing by there. That's where we schedule all of our meetups, all of our discussions, all of it's done there on the forum. So if you'd like to join us for anything, it is open to anyone. Just register there. Also, you will be noticing, or you have noticed probably, that I have been uploading the comics and manga pick of the week to the Page Chewing podcast. And that's because I had two separate podcasts, one devoted to comics and one for all the other books that I read, but I'm combining the two. So all of our comic book stuff you'll see posted here on Page Chewing, and I'm just going to manage one podcast instead of managing two. A little bit easier on me to manage just one instead of two, and it just kind of makes sense. It's all books. So that, at least that's the way I'm hoping it'll work out. So, this week I didn't get a whole lot of reading in, I have to say. I've been trying to just not push things, and I've been feeling kind of not all that jazzed about what I've been reading lately. So I think the book Hangover is still lingering a little bit. It's like, sometimes you have the hangover in the morning and you feel a little groggy, and then as the day goes, you start to feel better. And that's kind of where I am. I'm about 1 p.m. on my recovery on the next day. So hopefully it'll get better. I just always get a hangover after I read really great books or a really great series. And the second apocalypse just got me again this year. I just have not been all that jazzed about reading anything. But what I have been reading, I will talk about. I have been reading The Windup Girl. This is a book that we are discussing on Speculative Speculations. If you'd like to find that podcast, please check the description down below. We discuss about 100 pages every week, and we also discuss a short story from the big book of science fiction. So that's kind of our setup for that. So The Windup Girl is this dystopian future where food is the primary resource. I guess it's always the primary resource, but it's the resource that it's scarce. And so the people who are able to create food, to manage food, to control food, control the power. And there's also some scientific things going on here. It kind of reminds me of Blade Runner. And that's kind of the synthetic person. Are they people or they're not people? There's gene splitting and things like that. And I always enjoy stories that explore science going too far or kind of overstepping their boundaries and screwing things up and what that may mean. And you wonder, what are we doing now currently with technology and science that will come back to bite us in the ass later? I don't know. Time will tell, but AI does worry me a little bit. I'm sure for those of you who have been around for a while, I've been on the AI kick for a while. It's just one of those things that I worry about a little bit. That's a whole nother conversation. We'll get into that another time, I'm sure. The Windup Girl, it started off promising. I felt like it was off to a good start, but the last few chapters, I'm just not. It's just a lot of exposition, and it's losing me. And it's one thing, one of the things that, this isn't spoilery, but it is one of those things where the entire premise of the book is how food is this resource that's coveted, that people are starving, people are hungry, people are struggling, and we always get these markets full of food. It's like, well, if food is so scarce, then why are there markets everywhere? It's one thing to tell us, it's another thing to show us. And I just don't feel that oppressive need for food from the people that are in the book. I just don't feel it. I just don't feel like they tell us that it's this dire need, but I'm just not feeling it, if that makes sense. But I'm holding on. I've been hanging on to it. You know, if it's not something that I was reading with our friends, I would probably DNF it. That's kind of where I'm at now. But I will get into that here in a minute. I also got a little bit farther into the Trader Baru Cormorant. It's another book that I've been wanting to read for a long time. I didn't get a whole lot done, but I did get a little bit into it, and so far so good. I'm enjoying it. I'm not ready to DNF it, which is good. Lately for me, I've just been DNFing everything, so that's good. That's good news. I did finish Trader's Knot. That's the, I believe, 7th book of the Wars of Light and Shadow. I think 6th or 7th. So I'm all caught up, and I will be ready to read with the group on the next book. I fell off and fell behind, so I'm caught up, thankfully, back in the saddle with that one. Another really underrated series that more people should be reading. I know it's intimidating to get into especially a fantasy series where these big tomes of a book, and there's 9 or 10 books in the series, but it's one of those things where I think, and I'm guilty of this too, we get excited about the next read, about the newest thing. Not necessarily the newest published thing, just the newest thing for us that we discovered that sounds interesting, that we want to get into. That's why book ones are so popular, because it's exciting to get into the new story and to learn a new world and get to know new characters and explore these different writers and what the things that the way that they explore and the way that they present stories and tell stories. It's all exciting to do that kind of thing. So it's hard to keep up with a series that's long, but it is definitely satisfying and worth it when you do it. It's just one of those things. It's hard to stick with it when there's so many other books that you want to get to. And, it's one of those things. It's exciting, but, sometimes it's more satisfying to stick with the series that you're enjoying. If you're enjoying it, of course. If you're not enjoying it, don't do it. Now, I am also getting into H.P. Lovecraft. We are reading a few stories for the podcast, and we will be discussing a few short stories and a few novellas here next Friday on the podcast. So if you're interested in discussing these with us, please let me know. I believe there's a couple of spots left. We've been discussing it on the forum. But for short stories, we're reading The Call of Cthulhu, of course. We're reading the Pickman model. For novellas, we're reading The Shadow over Ismouth, The Dunwich Horror, and The Whisperer in Darkness. And I wanted to focus on books, and the podcast will publish on Halloween. But I wanted to I've never read Lovecraft before. This is my first experience, at least from what I remember. But I wanted to read books that were with a link to the Cthulhu mythos. I wanted to read those books that are connected to that world. So I'm excited to get into these stories and to explore this world. And so far I've only read the Call of Cthulhu, and I was impressed with the way that the story rolls out. And I won't give too many details for those of you who haven't read it, but I was impressed with the kind of the setup. I think it was a perfect place to start to explore the Cthulhu mythos. I'm excited about it. I'm looking forward to getting into it. I know there's a lot of other stuff we can talk about with Lovecraft and other authors who have a spotty history, but we're focusing on the storytelling. I'm sure we can explore the other stuff some other time with not only him, but other writers as well, with some of their very troublesome pasts. But for the purpose of this discussion, we will just be discussing the stories and the mythos, or the Cthulhu lore. So yeah, that's kind of what I've been reading and listening, or reading anyway. I do want to get back into Dopamine Nation this week. I didn't read any of it last week, but I was really enjoying it, so I want to get back into that. And also, as far as listening, I did get into a new band. I discovered a band. They're called Basement Revolver. I can't really describe what they are. They're, I guess, alternative. I don't really know. There's so many different genres of music now, or genres of everything. I lose track. But I will look it up. I will smash some keys. Hopefully you don't hear this. We will find out what they're categorized. They're an indie rock band from Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. So it is, there you go, indie rock band. And so if you want to check out a new band, like for something new to listen to, check that out. Maybe you'll dig it like I did. And we have, this week on the podcast, we have a few things coming up. This week, the top 10 graphic novels discussion will post on Friday. That's with Jose from Jose's Amazing Worlds and Jared from The Fantasy Thinker. That will post this coming Friday. That was a really fun discussion on our favorite top 10 graphic novels. And it was pretty varied, which I was surprised. But the top few, we had a lot of crossover. Our top three, I guess, lots and lots of crossover, but there's a few graphic novels that I just don't think you can have a top 10 list without. They're that good. I'm not sure some of you already know what those are because they're on pretty much everyone's top 10 list or greatest literature of all time. So, yeah, so that's coming up this Friday. So we have lots of upcoming group reads and watch-alongs. So I'll tell you about that now. And all this you can join on the forum, but of course it'll post on the podcast after. We are starting Malazan in October. That will be the first discussion for Guardians of the Moon. I believe the first part is on November 12th. And that will be every Tuesday evening. And then for the book wrap-ups, we're reading about 100 pages or so every week. And then for the book wrap-ups, I believe we're going to try and shoot for Saturdays or a weekend where more people are available. So that will come on the first one on November 12th. We are discussing American Psycho on November 16th. And we are also discussing The Penguin over on my other podcast, Film Chewing. Every Wednesday, Jared and I get together and discuss the newest episode of The Penguin. I think we're on episode 4 now. A really great series. I don't know if you're watching it, but it is a mix of The Sopranos and Batman is kind of what The Sopranos and Penguin anyway. And it's been really, really great. Been really impressed with it. It is more of a boots on the ground type of thing. It's not so fantastical. It doesn't have all the superhero, stuff that we're all, I think I can safely say we're all kind of tired of. And so, yeah, it's been really great. And we are, I was actually on the fence with what to do with Film Chewing because I wasn't sure how to keep up with that podcast and how to keep it interesting. I really love discussing movies and TV shows, but I just wasn't sure what to do next. So I published a thread on the forum asking for ideas, asking if someone wanted to be a co-host, kind of, what do I do with this? Kind of, I'm looking for help, can we schedule a day a month to get together and do something? So and I can blame Jared from the Fantasy Thinker for this one. He had this idea to meet every other week and discuss the Oscars best picture of every year, starting with 1960 and then moving our way up. So every other Wednesday, we will be discussing the best picture, the Oscars best picture. So for instance, we are starting in November to discuss The Apartment. It's the best picture of 1960. So in 2 weeks from then, we will discuss the next one. I believe it was West Side Story. We'll discuss that one and so on and so forth. We'll every other week we will be discussing it, and I believe those will post every other Saturday on Film Chewing. So that's going to be fun. There's lots of movies that I'm not too excited about watching, but I think that's what's fun about it, is that it takes you out of your comfort zone, and it makes you kind of just be open to things you normally wouldn't watch, and look for things to appreciate or things to learn from, to explore the history of cinema and to explore the history of filmmaking and to look at it year by year. I think is a fun exercise just to kind of get the brain moving. It's easy to get in a comfort zone. It's easy to get in a kind of, we like what we like and we kind of get narrow, kind of, or our focus narrows. But when you explore different things, I think it's good for all of us. I mean, coming from the guy who reads grimdark and loves dark stories and grief. But, I think it's good. I think it's good to step out of that comfort zone and explore different things. So that will start here in November. If you're interested, like I said, join our forums and check it out. We'd love to have you. And I believe we're still going to try to meet once a month or so on Fridays to discuss another type of movie. We've been wanting to discuss Donnie Darko, and I believe we wanted to do Alien Romulus and some other movies. So we'll still be discussing other movies. It just we'll have a steady every other week for the Oscars project. So I posted I've been working on my clickbait recently. I posted a thread on the forum about what we've dubbed the literary fiction side hustle. We started this, Varsha and Jared and Chris and I started this a few months back, where we would discuss different literary fiction books. We called it a side hustle, just for fun. And we've read things like The Road, we've read Blood Meridian, we've read 1984, Frankenstein, and I wrote this forum thread, and I called it "The Literary Fiction Side Hustle Was a Mistake." And of course, that's not really what I think, but it was to get people's attention and to practice my clickbait. But anyway, the point of that whole discussion was that the fact that I've been reading these books that are considered classics for a reason, like something like 1984, fundamentally changed the way that I see things. It's one of those books that really changed me in a really profound way. And I don't want to sound too melodramatic or too, I don't want it to sound too dramatic, but it really did change the way I see everything. It changes your perception on media and government and misinformation and control and all those things. It really did change a lot for me, that one book. If you haven't read it, I definitely recommend reading it. One of my favorites, and of course, listen to our discussion on it here on the podcast. And these books have really changed kind of the bar for me. I think it's in combination with the Second Apocalypse and also these classics. I've been really, something like Name of the Wind, which I talked about DNFing last week. If I'm not getting into the book, I used to push through. If I was like halfway, I wasn't digging it, I would push through and think it'll get better. Maybe the end has a twist that will hook me. And did that really happen? Not really. And, looking back, I can't think of one book that I pushed myself through when I didn't enjoy it. And I enjoyed it at the end because of the finale, or I enjoyed it because of some kind of twist. I don't know that there was one that I wanted to DNF that when I got to the end, I thought, I'm glad I read this. Most of the time I should have just DNF'd this. I didn't enjoy it. But I found myself ready to pull that trigger a lot faster now because I think I'm not enjoying this. I'm spending lots of time on it. I could be reading something really great right now. So it's really changed my kind of the bar for me, that I'm much, much pickier now. And I think it can be, I guess, good and bad, because if you get too, like we just talked about, if you get too narrow-minded, you can miss things that you'll really enjoy, that you close off yourself from. And I'll still give things a chance. But if I'm not feeling it, I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to push through books that I don't enjoy because I feel like I have to, or because, I'm holding out hope that the last 30% will really change things. And 30% doesn't sound like a lot, but when it's a 700-page book, that's a lot of time, and that's a lot of time investment. So I want to ask all of you, what are your thoughts on that? On, not only DNFing, but also, have you read any books that really changed you? Have really changed the way you see the world, or changed the way that you read, or changed your reading habits? And if so, what book was it? What book was it that changed your perception? It might have been a bad book that you pushed through and thought, why did I bother? So it could be a good or bad book or experience that you've had that changed your reading habits, or your watching habits for that matter. I'd love to hear about it. So yeah, the whole classics thing really changed my reading habits. And it's been an experience. So we'll be discussing that. We'll have a Friday conversation recording this Friday, and be discussing that about classics and also hot takes. So that's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to discuss that, and that will post the following week on the podcast. So if you'd like to join, I believe there's a spot or two open for this Friday. Just check out our forum, and anyone's welcome to come and join us. It's audio only, so if you're camera shy, you can rest easy. It's just audio. So also, I wanted to talk about DC All In. For those of you who are not keeping up with the DC Comics current event, it's basically this event that they are relaunching kind of an Elseworlds universe where it's a dark universe. So they're relaunching, they're still keeping all the 40, 50s, whatever, how many decades of years of history and continuity from the current heroes, like all the Batmans and all that stuff. That's remaining the same. They're just creating a separate universe that is like a dark universe of Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman and a couple other characters. But I love that kind of stuff. So I'm going to be buying all those titles and reading those. I just love this idea of relaunching new universes, or launching like an Elseworld or something like that, because I have trouble getting into superhero comics, because there's so much continuity. I just don't know what's going on. And I get they have to lean into it because of people who have been reading those books for, in some cases, decades. They appreciate the callbacks and the things that happened 20 years ago that they're integrating into a story now. I get that. But for someone who, like me, who came back into comics recently, a year or so ago, I'm completely lost with all this continuity. I just don't, it's like impossible to keep up sometimes. It's like going to a party and everyone there is like laughing at, these inside jokes, and you feel like a third wheel, like you don't feel welcome. So it's like you're visiting a group of friends who all have their own little inside, lingo and jokes, and you're just kind of have no idea what's going on. Like, I'm out of here. So I love this kind of thing. And I think, and I want to ask all of you, if Marvel and DC, the two major publishers with all these decades and decades of continuity in these superheroes, what I think is that they should do this every 2-3 years. Launch a universe, a brand new one, and just go wild. Just do a bunch of crazy shit. Just do whatever you want. Like, go nuts. Make Superman an evil Superman and have him like kill Batman, or have him kill, like, or have Batman die, or have whatever. Like, just go all out and just do crazy stuff with it, and then relaunch it in 2 years. Like, have these little bursts of like new stories, and just like reboot it every few years, just to get new people on, and to get new people like me who are wanting to get into this stuff. I just haven't been able to do that every couple of years, and keep the main stories. Leave them alone. You can continue those, but give us a new Elseworld every few years, and then reboot it, and just go nuts. Do crazy stuff. Just go nuts. So I would love that. I think that's my great idea of the week. I don't know if it's even a good idea. If, for those of you who don't read comics, would that make you more or less interested in starting if they did that, if they rebooted it every couple of years? Let me know what you think down below. Or if you're on the podcast, there's a link that you can send us a message. Or, of course, you can you can add to the thread on the forum and tell us what you think there as well. So, yeah, I hope all of you are doing great. It is finally cooling down for me. I was able to get 61 miles in on the bike today, and it wasn't too hot. So that is a good thing. It was still hot, but it's down in the 70s or so. So it is a lot better than 100, which it was for a long time. It feels like a never-ending summer. Hopefully it will calm down. So I hope all of you are doing great. Hope you're enjoying the weather. Hope everything's going well for you. The leaves are changing colors, and it's finally cooling down. Hopefully it's cooling down for you. But as always, leave a message in the comments section if you're on YouTube. If you're on the forum, leave a message there, or send us a message with a link below. And of course, if you enjoy the podcast, please rate and review it if you would. It really helps out a lot. I would really appreciate that if you would, because it helps a ton. So thank you for that. Those of you who have, I really appreciate it. And until next time, we will talk to all of you very, very soon.